And we were talking last week just about, people, how can you make yourself marketable in a really tough industry? What people kind of look for in CVs and that kind of thing. And as we were kind of brainstorming, we both realized that we had a lot in common, right? Because we both worked in industry for so many years. And so my kind of background is I have worked in media and entertainment for years and years. My previous company was Handle Recruitment. Handle Recruitment are one of the main recruiters for music and film and TV in London. So the kind of clients that we would work with would be any well-known brand. So thank God, you can't even think on the spot. So people like Alexander McQueen, NBC, Universal, Disney, Warner, all of the big names we worked with, but also all the record labels. And DMS came about because I was really passionate about working for a company on site as a recruiter. Shall I press continue here, Heather?
Oh yeah, please.
I was like, am I doing something wrong? Yeah, and you honestly, dealing with so many candidates in the years that I've been recruiting in the industry, there is a few little tips and skills that you pick up. So yes, you do have the kind of standard, you are going to have the tips that people give you, and a good CV is, there is a kind of standard thing that you would look for. But actually there is kind of what we discovered is an extra kind of layer on the cake, if you will, on what these kind of companies are looking for. So, and you just kind of pick it up from years and years of recruiting for these kind of people and what the different trends and different things that they like. So yeah, so that was my background. I talked about the kind of clients. A good CV, I think I said this to Heather before, a good CV is open to interpretation. So I was having this conversation with my flatmate because she was saying, shouldn't a good CV have this, this, and this? What about a good cover letter? What about this? What about that? And I would say, yes, it depends. Okay. So how do I describe it? So a good CV. So a lot of recruiters, if you want to go and work for Disney as an example, you have to get past their internal recruiter first. So you might get advice from two people. You'll get an advice from the employer of the operations team, or who heads up the motion graphics team of Disney. And he says that he likes, I don't know, this kind of CV with this kind of experience. But in order to get to that guy, you still need to get past the internal recruiter. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about, as in there's so many different ways that you can go about it. But basically, in the industry, there is a certain kind of thing that they look for in CVs. So yeah, what else did I say? So CV, open to interpretation, what a good CV is. Okay, so I have a question for you. If you want to put in the chat, what do you think are the top 3 things that employers look for on a CV?
Yeah, I'll put it in now. Yeah, this is a good one. What do you think the top 3 things?
Yeah.
Top 3 things employers look for in a CV. Okay, over to everybody else. What top 3 things? And if you can't think of 3, just think of 1.
Just guess.
Here, I'm going to experience, skills, relevant skills, creativity, passion, engagement, experience. Who is this? Who is the this?
Who am I?
Can you see the chat, Carolyn?
Yeah,
good.
Anybody else? Okay. Yeah, there's lots of different things that employers are going to look for. There is certain things, like I said, that are a general rule of thumb. The first thing that I would say is a good clean CV. And what I mean by a good clean CV is it has to look really neat and tidy, and just almost look at your CV. So 2 pages is a rule that everyone kind of knows is a general rule of thumb. If you go over 2 pages, it's not life or death, but your CV has to look tidy. So that sounds like a really obvious thing, but sometimes people, if they're in more, I get a lot in marketing, where they are trying to kind of show that they're really good at the certain graphics and trying to make the CV look really cool and really, relative for media. but sometimes they make the CV look just a little bit too busy. There's no harm in adding a few graphics and making it look really nice, but you have to remember that less is more. So that would be the first thing. Another thing that is just kind of, by the way, this is not right or wrong. This is just what I've picked up from all the years, so it's not my opinion.
And would you say that if the student, because some of the students they're kind of working towards designing, doing a very heavy designed CV. Obviously, like we've got graphic design students and motion graphics, and sometimes a lot relies on the portfolio. I think we talked about this. But would you say they don't have to have the most amazing, wonderful design, but like you said, clear, clean, logical, well laid out?
You can showcase your design in your portfolio. The CV itself still needs to look a certain way. Like, as in, if you're trying to put it all in the CV, it's probably not going to work. Like our when we're recruiting for motion graphics, I'll look at the CV and experience and what you've done in your degree, but our managers will look at the portfolio. So if you want to try and throw in loads of design things, like, it is good to do that, but just really look at your CV in a really diplomatic way and think, does this look really busy for someone who doesn't come from a motion graphics background? So you have to, I guess, people that are in UX, it's the same thing. You've got to make sure that you're catering for the actual user and the person that's going to be viewing your CV. So your portfolio is really good for demonstrating your design. You can have it on your CV, but just make sure it doesn't make your CV look too busy. A second thing that I've come across is people make their CV, this is kind of in relation to busy, but it's more experience. So if you worked in, I don't know what people's kind of different backgrounds are, but if you worked in McDonald's 10 years ago, it's probably not going to be relevant to what your employer is looking for, unless you want to work at McDonald's head office. But you need to make sure that your CV and your experience is relevant for at least the last couple of years. I know this is probably relevant or irrelevant-ish for you guys, but sometimes you get people that put roles for the last 10 years when actually a recruiter is only going to look at maybe the last 5 years. In saying that, if you don't have experience, put in the modules that you're doing as part of your degree and go through a bit more. So use that as your experience for your job.
We often recommend, we always say to the students, and I'm sure some of the students on this call I know I've chatted with before. Take the projects that they've worked on. If they haven't got sort of that much experience, take those projects that they've worked on either in motion graphics or editing or UX UI and put that down on as experience, particularly because it's also the technical skills as well. And we also say that actually having a bit of retail work, if they've done retail, hospitality, volunteer work, that like obviously like you said, it's maybe not from sixth form or even sixth form is okay, but that actually is quite relevant and useful.
Yeah, it all has
employability and
exactly. And also, by the way, if you want to work in fashion, like Alexander McQueen was one of our biggest clients, one of my main clients. And wouldn't say biggest, but because they're actually, even though they're a well-known name, they're actually quite a small business. So it's interesting sometimes with the kind of what the impression that people might have of some of these companies, but actually there's certain ways that you can get in. So for example, with Selfridges and a lot of the retailers, especially Alexander McQueen, sometimes it isn't always the amazing, sexy fashion brand that will get you into Alexander McQueen. It's actually things like if you have logistics and manufacturing on your CV. I know that sounds really like
interesting.
But if you worked at a kind of manufacturer then or logistics, then you'd have a really good chance, because it's hard to find people with that kind of experience. So in saying that, if you were someone who wants to get into fashion, well, I'd focus my final year projects in and around fashion or logistics or something that's helping to change the industry. So I don't know if that kind of helps, but it's
that's helpful.
And also there's another thing, because we, for example, with DMS, they really like, for example, we were talking about this, Heather, actually, that we have a lot of hires from motion graphics or from kind of if you're anything to do with kind of the technical side of filmmaking, and there's stuff that's never kind of thought, or I covered a little bit but not into too much depth, which is a lot of our clients are based in LA, So it's things like American frame rate conversions and things like that that students never have. So that would kind of lead me to my next point, is in if you want to work for, if you have I don't know, 10 companies in your head that you want to work for, then try and learn about what those companies are doing, is in try and speak to a stakeholder if you can, just connect with them on LinkedIn. People are usually really easygoing about just telling you about their own experience. And also things like learning the system that they're already using is huge. So when we were recruiting for kind of all the majors like Disney, Warner, they all use like certain systems for like operations. They use SAP, things like that. So find out a little bit more of the company, is in little projects that you think might be very similar to them, which was, sorry, this is my next point, which is like for like. So everything, especially in London and how the market moves, it is industry and like for like. So for example, if you were working in the public sector for 5 years, it's really hard to get into media. So but also if you're working for Publicis and then you want to get into a company like DMS, it's really easy to move around, because once you have the industry experience on your CV, so you become kind of, it's relatable-ish industries, and you kind of have to have that mindset. So whenever I'd kind of meet candidates, I'd be like, and they'd come in and be like, I want to work anywhere. I'd be like, no. No. You need to have a plan, because it actually kind of does you a disservice if you would come in and say that you'll work anywhere, because companies don't, well, especially in entertainment and media, they want you to be really passionate about the industry and really have thought about why you want to work for them. So think about strategically where you want to work in relatable-ish industries. So yeah, so I'd say 3 things. They like clean CVs, try and keep the most relevant experience for the last couple of years, and like for like, always think like for like. What did I say? Framework conversions in the US. Oh, sorry, you're just writing.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, like for like in relatable-ish industries. And yeah, it would be surprising as well, as in things like to get into yeah, like I keep you like an NBC Universal, to get into them, if you worked for an unknown media company, it didn't really matter, because as long as you're in media kind of thing. So
yeah, Amir's asking a question here about, he was working as a line leader in Toyota car factory. Amir, what's a line leader? If you're able to you can turn your mic off and chat if you want. Is it relevant to UX? You think yes, but it's not relevant at the same time. Confused.
Well,
what's a line leader?
Well, UX is also it depends what you were doing, because if you have an example of something that was basically a project that you were involved in, that's relevant, and you can have that on your portfolio and on your CV. So if you were like doing a job for a company, then that's probably not relevant, but UX is very tied into project management. So if you were involved and you were like a product manager for Tokyo, for this car factory, and your project resulted in them increasing their productivity by, I don't know, 10%, then that is relevant. So I think, like I said, always kind of tying it into the kind of company that you're applying for and making it relevant, I think is the best way.
Yeah, and equally, Amir, that actually if you work for a huge company like Toyota, and that's the same for anyone else that's worked for, and obviously we said like, okay, McDonald's, but if you've worked for JD Sports and you were doing, even though that may have been as a sales assistant, you've worked for a massive brand, although obviously not quite sure if they're hanging about, but you get the idea. Toyota, JD Sports, if you're in marketing or motion graphics, or like you said, UX UI, they're brand companies. You will have picked up some awareness about the culture and how they do their marketing and their customers, and just how the feel of that company is, and that's quite useful. So that, and
don't misinterpret what I was saying. If you worked for McDonald's 10 years ago, what I mean is anything that's kind of too far away from 5 years ago on your CV, look, it's still good, but they're just like, it's probably more if you've been in industry for a few years as opposed to getting into industry after graduating. But you're quite right. If you worked for, I had a guy who worked for McDonald's in Australia, and then he was qualified Big Four and came over here to work as an analyst. And he worked in McDonald's head office over here, so his experience was completely relevant. So, but like I said, just make sure it always kind of ties into your CV. And I really like people that have worked in retail and managed large teams as well. You get really good experience, and you know the life cycle of how stock works. So actually, just make sure you tie it into your experience and what you're going for. So if you worked as a retail assistant at, I don't know, Topshop, and then you want to apply for a job with ASOS, then I will be talking about that experience.
Yeah, thanks.
So.
Great. And we'll just quickly picked up about the picture, which will just, and then we'll move on. But I say photos not recommended. They used to be quite popular, like, I know 5-10 years ago, I'm not sure, but not recommended. And the reason for that is that possibly the employer or the recruiter, whoever is looking at your CV, has an unfair advantage, because if they're looking at 10 CVs and only 2 of them have photos, then they may think, oh yes, I really like that person, or oh actually no, I don't like the look of that person. So actually having CV without photo, I think it's more linked to kind of the equality and diversity. I don't know what your thought is, but kind of stay away from it. I know it still does exist in the creative industries, so I'm aware that people do put photos on there, but from a careers professional industry point of view, it's not needed. That's my sort of take.
They won't usually look at a photo, they'll look at your LinkedIn after your CV. So that's pretty much what loads of them do. They'll don't put your photo on your CV, you don't need to, but also it can get a company into tricky ground with lots of different things. So they will, if they like your profile, they'll sniff around a bit more and have a look at you on LinkedIn. So just make sure that your LinkedIn's updated kind of with a similar format to how you have your CV. Yeah. So that's just one thing I'd add. Sorry to interrupt.
No, carry on. Where were we up to?
Also I wanted to talk about the types of companies, because you would be surprised as well. Sometimes when you work for a big, huge global company, even in media, they can be quite corporate. So you have to think about the kind of culture that you want to work for. So as a very sweeping general rule of thumb, if you work kind of in a small to medium sized media company or retail company in London, they're going to be, in general, tend to be quite easygoing, tend to not have processes set in place. So you'd be kind of going in and probably doing like 3 jobs in one, because it's just the way, the nature of a smaller company. Whereas if you go and join a company like a Disney, yeah, it's really cool to have a name like Disney on your CV, but you might actually be doing like a very niche part of your role on a team of 15 people. So it's really important to think about the kind, and both are right, but there's no right or wrong, because some people start off in a Disney, get like the name on their CV, do it for 6 months to a year, and then move on to maybe a different company where they can move up again. So think about the kind of company. I have written down here personality. What I mean by that is some companies love when you have stuff on your CV, as in talking about kind of your interests and you traveling everywhere and all the food that you eat and all that kind of stuff, and it's great. But think that works for the kind of company that you're applying for. So make sure that it's in line with the culture of that company. So if music companies usually like it. So if it's like you want to work for Warner Music or something, make sure you're putting in about your interests, about how you kind of love music and how, you know, tied in that way. But if you're applying for something that's a big listed company, it isn't as relevant. So it depends. So like, for example, if you're applying for a job in insurance, they don't care about your interests. It's more about your kind of experience and what you've done. Whereas if you want to work for a film company like a DMS, they are going to ask you what movies that you like. If you want to work in fashion, they're going to ask you, they're going to have a look, and it would be nice to say that you did this internship here, or that you have been a great follower of this other fashion person for years. So just, make sure that your interests are also kind of in line with the company that you're applying for as well.
Yeah, it all comes back to everything being relevant, doesn't it? And a really good point about the culture and the style. And I think also looking at the job description and how it's written, that often really helps as well, doesn't it? When you look at the way they've worded things, some job descriptions are 5 lines long and others are, you know, well laid out with paragraphs in terms of what they're looking for, you know, the requirements, the person's specification, all that sort of thing. You know.
And some jobs are different than are called different names in different companies as well. So I think like one of the guys mentioned a UX. Well, UX in a smaller company is kind of doing everything, whereas you could be doing UX in I don't know, like I keep saying, just name me a big company like a Disney. You might be doing kind of one small part of the kind of product life cycle. So that's kind of, just be aware of that, as in, and as I said, there's no right or wrong. It's just kind of knowing that, make everything relevant, because you can go get a good name on your CV. The role might not be that end-to-end piece that you wanted, but if you get a company like that on your CV, you'll still be able to do really well. Well, you will be able to do very well, because you'll have a good name on you, a good brand on your CV to carry you.
Yeah.
So yeah, just what else did I write down here? Yeah, I wrote down here. Also, this is more kind of if you get to interview stage. I would be, if you're being represented by a recruiter, I would get them to tell you about the kind of style of interview, or just talking again about the culture, because if you work, if you're interviewing for a music company, they usually have a certain kind of personality, which is basically that kind of conversational, good media, you know, good at building a good rapport, but then also convincing them that you don't want to be the world's next singer or whatever. Like, you have to kind of show you want to work in music, but also that you want to do the job that you're going for within that music company. So showing that you have that kind of passion, but getting the balance right.
Yeah, really good point, actually. Yeah.
We had a girl from Warner Music ring us up and say it was for an operations role, and she said, Carolyn, they're going to be paying the gas bill, so we don't want someone who wants to be wants to be like the next singer. And I was like, fair enough. So it's just, even if you want to be the next singer, just don't make it sound like you do in the interview.
Yeah, I always say that, you know, that CV is about, you're trying to solve the problem that the employer's got. The employer or the organization or the company, the person, even if it's freelance, they have a problem to solve, which is they've got a gap. They need somebody to do the project or the work, and you are there to solve that problem. And so when thinking about that CV, are you, you know, is it relevant? You know, the style in which you're writing, and how you're kind of selling your skills. So it's just going to briefly mention the 5 sections. And look, this is, I mean, for the CV competition, we haven't been specific about make sure you have all of these, but on a CV, what you should have is these sections, which is the profile. I'm going to put it in the chat as well. The profile, that's your 2 or 3 lines, what we call the elevator pitch about you, and it isn't from the view of the personal statement where you're writing about sort of your, you know, why you decided to study, you know, or why you decided to take up motion graphics. It's very much about what skills have you got, what have you got to offer. So yeah, the profile, key skills, and that's like a short bullet pointed list which can include your technical skills, education, work experience, and then interests as well. Somebody just asked about that, saying, should we include hobbies and interests? It's a bit strange if I mention that I like to cook on the CV. So I think people get a bit messed up with this, not the interest, and also kind of move away from calling it hobbies, because hobbies sounds to me more like from school. I think interests. Sometimes people put this together with interest and achievements.
Or make it relevant. Like if you say I like cooking, well, cooking is very creative, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's a process. So if you enjoy doing like a creative process, you're applying for a creative role, you know.
Yeah, again, I mean, I've got on there that I've been traveling and I did a skydive, and that's not because I'm, you know, not to because I want to kind of show off the fact that I jumped out of a plane, but actually it just, and this goes a little bit back to the story, because you're just giving a little bit more information about yourself and your personality and your identity. And it's also things that are just outside of your, you know, your work experience. And some of you may not have a huge amount of work experience, but you may have run a marathon, or you may have fundraised for your local church or something, or I don't know, or you know, you head of year or something like that. And those show character, and they show personality, and they show motivation, and those are good things to highlight on a CV.
I think if you have a spy on their social media as well, like what I used to kind of do is have a look on the, you know, the company website, but pay attention to the way the culture comes across on their website and on their like LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff. So if it looks like, if they're all kind of, if they're an advertising agency in Shoreditch and they're all pulling funny faces on their Instagram, then, or on their website, then you kind of know, stick your interests on your CV, because they want to know about you as a complete person. Or if they, like I said, if they're like a bit more of a bigger corporate company, you know, they are still, could be a really nice culture, but just a bit more of a global company, then I would make sure that you're, you know, you put your interest, but don't kind of go into too much detail. I just have it really brief and then kind of leave it at that. But like we would say to people, look, if you're, it depends on the industry, but as a general rule of thumb, if you are applying for a company that's a bit more corporate, you will know by the look of their company website and the way they are, then I'd probably stay clear if it's a different industry. But like I said, I want to highlight this. It's not a general rule of thumb. It's more, this is what we have seen in the market. Yeah.
Thanks, that's good to know. So someone's asked about other types of CVs. Oh yes, Ben. Hi, Ben. Ben's also from our careers team as well. So yeah, I'll answer that in a second, but just going, oh, here's Ben. And he's gone. There was just another point I was going to make. Can't remember what it was. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, other types of CVs. So yeah, absolutely. There is and I think this is quite a big debate at the moment. I don't know if it's a debate, but we are moving away from sort of paper CVs. Having said that, you may still always need to have that sort of PDF version that you just may need to have at hand. So it is useful to have. As Carolyn mentioned, some people just look at your portfolios, but there are plenty of video CVs out there. There are quite a few recruitment, like sort of graduate recruitment agencies that will come along and say, oh, we can, you know, sign up with us, come and do a video CV, and you're out there in the public domain on their website with your sort of doing your little chat. It can feel quite unnatural. So you need to probably prepare. But in terms of a video CV, you guys are, you know, you're in the digital world, you're in the creative industries now. It's a bit like knock yourself out, see what you can come up with, because actually there's so many different platforms now, LinkedIn and then Instagram and, you know, Twitter, every which way. Also for those that are neurodiverse, if you're dyslexic or dyspraxic or on the spectrum, and actually sitting down and trying to write through your skills is a huge challenge. Come up with a video CV. I have seen students do it. I think you've got to think about how it's going to work. And I've seen also very creative CVs, you know, people that have wanted to be shoe designers and send in a shoe with their CV on the side of the box, people sending in CVs on cereal packets.
I love that.
Yeah, not recently, I haven't seen it, but a while ago.
Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm like, when I was saying about the portfolios, as in it's the CV backs up the portfolio, they come hand in hand. So just in case I was saying that, CV is very important. My opinion on that is actually, I think that's really cool. Like, so for example, if I was getting a CV like that through for our motion graphics team, I'd like you to send that as a video format, but then also an editable CV document. So just a normal Word document of your CV. So think about your audience, as in your audience is one part me, and then second part our head of motion graphics. So he will love the fact that you've done that and put your CV in that format. And also it's quite an original way to get in touch with someone. So, but just make sure that I would prefer to have, oh, that's really cool, open it up and I can see the video, but then also to have your CV so I can just study it a little bit as well.
Yeah, so, that's really useful. And actually, I'm just going to share something that I saw on LinkedIn recently. I think it's more for those that are maybe in the advertising world. So this girl, she put together this pop-up banner, you know, like the ones you would have an exhibition, and she put her CV on there. I think it is a paper format, and she's obviously put it like in a plastic wallet. And imagine what it's like to work with me. Okay, she's an attractive young girl, so you know, I'm not covering equality and diversity here, but and she sent this to a company, and she said, imagine what it's like to work with me, and asked them to put it at the desk. And I just thought it was very clever, clever in the fact that what it did was made her stand out from the crowd. And the recruiter or the employer said that out of 200 applications, she stood out. And so her skills might not have been any different from anybody else, but they liked the fact that she thought about something. I think it was a marketing role, and so that fits with a pop-up banner. And this is recent. This is not 3 years ago. This was in the last 3 months. And I found this on LinkedIn. So
that's actually very important to mention as well. So in terms of, I know the topic is CVs, but it's a very tough jobs market at the moment. And what we used to say to people is, just in general, before the recession is going to kick in, we used to say that most of the job market is 70% of the job market is passive. And what that basically means is the roles that you don't see advertised. So if it is a tough market, but there is ways that you can get in front of people. So this is very clever, but there's also other things that you can do. For example, if you really are passionate about football or passionate about, like, if you have companies in your head that you really want to work for, connect straight away with the line manager on LinkedIn. I know it's a bit cheeky, but it's they actually like it, because it means that they don't have to kind of go to a recruiter in an agency in London and, you know, pay a recruiter fee. So they're actually saving money. And also you're contacting them because you're really passionate about the company that they work for. So that's already a really positive way to get in touch with someone. So what I used to suggest to people, and I used to do it myself, is that it worked for connecting with Brian van Holderbeck. So he's the CFO of Alexander McQueen. I literally just contacted him and I said, I think your company is amazing and I really want to work with you. And I've been working with him for 9 years. So that's kind of what I mean, is just being like a little bit different about how you approach companies. So that girl, her banner is a really clever idea because it's standing out, but it's also, there's other little tricks that people can do as well. Like just literally go on their profile page, connect, and just a little note about, you know, you're really passionate about their company and you've just graduated. Do you think you might have any internships or anything coming up?
Yeah, we definitely sort of promote LinkedIn. I mean, Instagram works differently in terms of, I think, a lot of freelance work, but LinkedIn, and as you said, is, you know, that fantastic networking space to chat with people. And actually really great to hear from you, Carolyn, that you are, because a lot of the students feel like that why would they want to hear from a student, and they're not going to reply back, and they're not interested in me, I don't have any experience. But it's exactly the opposite, isn't it? Because it's
just get your profile ready though. That's one thing I would say. So like everything I discussed, if you just get in touch with them and you're like, and have the confidence, because sometimes I get students contact me and they're like, oh yeah, you know, they just don't really know how to say the right thing, and that's fine. But if your CV has that you did a module in filmmaking and motion graphics and you learned about frame rate conversion or whatever, you're passionate about film or just something relevant to what we do, then that's great. And also I forgot to mention this as well, that I had, this is also something that is just might be worth thinking about, because I had this girl who is really green to the London market, and I put her forward for a role with Alexander McQueen, and I said, whatever you do, don't go into the interview and say that you love fashion, because that's like such a standard kind of thing to say, as in the kind of people that work there really get the brand. So like I said, do your research and like understand like the way some of these companies operate, because Alexander McQueen, their whole story is they're high fashion, but they were actually owned, like Lee McQueen was a designer, he was famous, and he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. He had mental health issues. But the whole point of Alexander McQueen was to push the boundaries. So they're really like, he loved kind of making people look at themselves, and so you kind of need to know all about the art side of things. So don't sit there and kind of say, I want to work in fashion, because they'd be like, okay. And it is good that you are passionate about it, but you need to think about why you want to work for these companies and think of a really good answer. So you don't have to say, oh my God, I'm the most, like when I went for my interview with DMS, I'm not like the most amazing film buff ever. Like half of the movies I haven't seen, but I owned kind of my top 5 movies that I love and why I love them. Do you know what I mean? As in you think about why you want to work for them and think of a really good answer and own it.
Yeah, very good advice. Yeah. Fantastic. Should we have a quick look? I'll tell you what I'll do. What I thought we'd do. It's 4:45, so maybe we'll have a quick look at a CV just on screen. And there's no right or wrong about this. And I know we're in a CV competition, and actually this CV is from an old CV competition. There's no right or wrong. It's just useful to have a look at. I just thought I'm conscious that actually when we talk about CVs, it's very good to visualize something. And it's just a talking point. I'll just share it and we can have a look, and then maybe Carolyn's got anything more to add, and then we can take some more questions, and then we can kind of end the Monday. So let's have a quick look at this. I've chosen, it's an editing and post. I think some of the students may have already seen it because I sometimes send it around to them. And it's very interesting because it's very minimalistic. So it doesn't have a profile on it. And the sort of key skills are kind of down here. So as I said, I'm not saying this is the way to do it. It's quite interesting to see in terms of a minimalistic approach. And what the person has focused on doing is their experience. And not all of these, I mean, obviously you can see, okay, not all of these were, I think, sort of big full-time jobs, but the person's obviously done some work experience. He's called himself an assistant editor, because if you look here, they graduated in 2015. So these 2 roles, but I think it's clever in the way that it's just getting you, if I looked at this CV, I probably would be quite keen to have a chat or have an interview with this person because they've laid out their experience here. They've just got their degree on there. I quite like it when people put what they've done before university, and they've got some of their skills. So, and it's 1 page, as I said, as Carolyn has said, no more than 2, but 1 is fine.
But it's like I said, it's open to interpretation. If you have amazing experience and it leaks into 3,
yeah,
it's more when you get into territory of like 5 pages and you're just like, come on, guys. So yeah,
or also CVs that have got tables in and things like that, kind of steer clear of that. So I just thought this is interesting to look at. I always would recommend having a profile, and that is what this is missing. And that would appear sort of, anywhere at the top. Always needs to be sort of immediately the first thing. But it is very clear what the person is about. And this goes back to Carolyn's point that there's no hesitation here. This person is looking for online and offline editing roles. So instead of sort of being generic. And the other thing I just wanted to cover, which I know sometimes is often asked, is about references. And we always say that you don't need to put people's names and numbers and details on there. It's not needed because people will, an employer will follow up anyway. You can just put references available upon request. So, and obviously if you do that and you provide names and numbers later, then always make sure you've checked with them. But if there's any comments on the CV, then put it in the chat. What do you think, Carolyn?
So you have to think of, don't think of CV in terms of right or wrong. Think of a CV in terms of the context, okay? So for example, I can already tell, like I've been looking at so many CVs for so many years, that the style, as in if someone's a small company, you're looking for a medium-sized company, or they'll probably get a role with a medium-sized company, and someone who's going to get a job with, one of the kind of bigger names. And what I mean by bigger name is like a Disney, I mean global listed company type of bigger name. So like I said, Alexander McQueen are actually a small size company, but you can tell the style of someone's CV by the kind of size of company they're going to apply for, or that you can tell by the look of their CV if they had worked for a kind of small to medium sized company. It's written in a certain way. So first of all, Little Dot Studios, I really like that, and WGSN. I probably want to see a bit more about what they did, because they were there for quite a while, so 2015, 2016. So I'd like to see that kind of more for the whole size here. Just because I'm already going to have to ring them up, and kind of I would be adding that to their CV to get them in front of a line manager. So I'd want to see more of this, and also I want to see the kind of client you already have here, the kind of clients that they were working with. I want to kind of know about the kind of systems that they were doing, the kind of processes that they were doing, and that kind of thing. So I just want a bit more bulk on these two roles. But I really like everything that's kind of written here is in talking about the kind of spot work that they were doing. And but I think if you've been in these roles for this amount of time, you can come up with just a bit more information than just two or three lines. So, but I understand what's going on here because it's all on one page. So I just bulk it up a little bit more. And then for the post-production with Ravensbourne, obviously I love that. But if there's anything relevant to the company, so if in one of the modules I don't know, if the role that you're applying for is a versioning producer, then put in some of a production module that you did in your course, and then talk about the project that you're doing. And so just something really relevant would kind of give you that icing on the cake. But yeah, I think it's a really nice CV. I think it's really the graphics on it are really cool, and it's really kind of tidy.
Yeah.
So it's more if people just have stuff kind of, I've seen paid like 3 panels on CVs and a picture up here, and then like just, and they think it's being kind of really clever graphics, and it does look like it's nice graphics, but it's too much.
Yeah, and this is clean, isn't it? This goes back to what you said right at the beginning. It is clean, and I think
tidy, perfectly in line.
Yeah.
No spelling mistakes. Like,
I think it's interesting that you. I think what here in terms of the years, what I would also recommend to add in is that to put a month, because actually it leaves it very open to you're just trying to assume here that not sure how long they've worked on this. Even if it was a 2-week project, then always put that in. So you could just put May 2015 short-term project or short-term editing role doing blah blah blah, and then because it's not clear at all, these are just years here. So I would question that, or it leaves me with sort of thinking, what's gone on there. And the more that you're transparent you can be, or like we said, sort of referring to those projects and modules that you've done.
Or think about who you're applying for. So if you're applying for like a company like DMS, so DMS are a small to medium sized agency in London. So we're all about film. We deal with some TV clients, but mainly film. So I'd be bulking up what I did at Little Dot Studios, bulking up what I did at WGSN, talking about my degree, and anything film related in my degree, I'd be bulking that up. And in my interest, I'll be talking about how I don't know, like in my spare time, set up, I don't know, do you know what I mean? As in, like, I had my own production company and I did this and this and this document, or this film and that film. So it's more just trying to show that it's like, always think like for like. So, or for example, if this CV was a fashion CV, I'd be like, right, so Little Dot Studios, I'd be taught like, well, you wouldn't really have it as fashion CV because it's Little Dot Studios, but yeah, I'd still be bulking this up. In my degree, I'd be talking about anything relatable-ish to retail, because even, funnily enough, actually there is a little bit of a crossover, because even if you have if you worked for, like, I don't know, a Disney, you would be able to get into like an NBC because they're still well-known brands. So that's kind of a side thing to note. But my whole point is just make sure that your CV is relevant to the company and it kind of flows to what they do and what you're applying for.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay. It was just.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking, I forgot to tell you that. Well, oh no, I didn't mention that. With when going for the interview, like I said, with the with McQueen, make sure that you have thought about why you want to work for them.
Very good point. So just very quickly, we'll just have a really quick look at this one. And the only reason, and again, I'm not saying this is a model CV, but this is just text. And I just wanted to refer to this because it's not designed, but it is clean and it's well laid out. Although I wouldn't have personal statement, I would call it a profile, and not all of this is necessarily the way, some of this could be changed, but I just wanted to show again that you can still have something that is just text-based that is still effective. And obviously this person has drawn out, again, the kind of, each different look. We've got Alexander McQueen.
Oh, their fashion. Yeah, that's really cool. I like the CV because, well, first of all, if we were sending this over, if you just go back to the top, telling you all the little tricks, we'd probably chop off half of the personal statement.
Yeah.
It's just too much there. And I'd talk about something in there about, so it depends what the role is, but if it's creative, I don't know too much about fashion, I just know working with them, but make sure that in the personal statement it's relatable to that job. So if it's in the job you're dealing with loads of different stakeholders, then I'd probably talk about how you love dealing with lots of different people or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
With the production garment technology internship, I'd probably bulk this up a bit more, but have it just a bit more easier to read, because I'd be like, what?
Yeah, it is a lot of text, isn't it? So, and again,
really clear.
It works both ways, and some people just put short bullet points, but I just wanted to sort of show between
good CV though. This is
and they're so different, aren't they? The other one's so heavy on design and minimalistic with the text in a way, and this one is just all text, and I think it's good to see. And as we said, no right or wrong, it's about clear, relevant, logical, well laid out. You look to that job description, look at the type of company, the size of company, their culture, all these things, so many things to think about. All right, I'll turn this off, and then I think we may have had a few questions, but I think Ben's been answering them, which is great.
Yeah, like I said, it's when someone's asking what's the best CV, don't think of best CV for the job you're applying for. So always think with that mindset, as in, if I'm applying for Disney, do I know the systems that they use? Do I have a project in my uni that is relevant to what they do? Is just anything relevant to what they do? Is there maybe a previous job that you did in retail? Are you working for a retail part of Disney? Because they've lots of different commercial brands or strands to them. So just make sure that your CV is fitting in with that company. So don't think right or wrong, think the kind of company that you're applying for.
Great, thank you. Really good. Thanks, Ben. I think you've been answering a few questions in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Has anyone else got, or Ben, have you got anything else to add? Has anybody got any other questions? Please put in the chat. Anything else?
Not from me. It's been brilliant. Really, really grateful, Carolyn and Heather, for doing this. It's been fantastic.
Sometimes you don't know if you're kind of telling people stuff that they already know, by the way. So if you guys are like, no, we kind of know this, we know it's 2 pages, and we know it's we put fashion for fashion or media for media, but always think like for like, and think like I said, all the fashion companies love anything to do multi-site, manufacturing, logistics, anything to do with supply chain. They love all that stuff. And media companies, it's all like for like. So even if you work for an unknown media company that not many people know about, it doesn't matter, it will still get you in. And if there's a company in media or in any of these industries that you want to work for, find out from someone what systems they use, or like just what they do day to day. You can probably find a job spec, and then you'll see the systems that they use on the job spec. And also spy on their social media, because on their LinkedIn, they'd have news updates about what the company is doing. So when you go for an interview and they ask you what you know about the company, don't give this, like you would obviously look at the kind of their main website, but also say, oh, by the way, I heard about this, and you sound like you really know what you're talking about, because they would have updated their news on their LinkedIn company profile. So things like that are really, really good.
Fantastic. Yeah, I back up everything that you've said. Really, really useful.
But nobody ever does it. And it will get you in. No, it will get you in. They love that, and you don't have to. So when people are like, yeah, look at a website and study the company, that's kind of a given. But what they're looking for is make sure you know about the news that's going on with the company, like that girl I grilled her before she went down to McQueen. She was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. What do I say? I was like, say you want to work in fashion because you're really passionate about the creative industry. You love how Lee McQueen pushed the boundaries of art, which he did through his clothes. So think about why you want to work for that company, think of a really good answer, and look at their news on their social media as well as their website.
Yeah,
I'll stop talking now.
No, I know we could go on all night, couldn't we? Thanks so much, Carolyn. Really great to have you and
no worries.
Sort of.
I might come next time armed with CVs so I can show you what.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That would be cool. Like I can take all the names off, so it's not GDPR. I'm not breaking the law basically, but yeah, it'd be nice to kind of show you what the kind of people that have got jobs, so you can kind of see.
Yeah, well, maybe in the new term we can try. Hopefully maybe we might do a session within the course or something like that, and then we can have like a mini session or something and bring some CVs, definitely.
For interview tricks, tips.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll put into the chat the link to where the information is about the CV competition. Or you probably already had it because we've been sending around emails as well. There's a whole range of also this talk. Not Carolyn is not here every night, but there's somebody different every night this week, or 4 o'clock. Feels like nighttime to me, but. So yeah, there's all different. It's all there on the intranet. Closing date for the 8th of January. First prize is £100 cash prize. So we look forward to receiving your entries. And also, if you do want a follow-up, there's me, there's Ben, there's Yvonne. Clara's on leave now, but if you want to follow up and have a chat with us, one-to-one about CVs or anything else careers related, then we're here. And that's probably everything for tonight. But really, thanks again, Carolyn, and it's great to sort of be back in touch again.
I know it is. It's lovely. I've just stuck my email for DMS in the chat as well.
Oh, fantastic!
We are going to be hiring across the board over the next couple of weeks. I'm not really supposed to promote that yet, but we are. So yeah, if anybody wants any extra advice or anything, it's really cool to be able to help people and to deliver good news that there is people hiring in the market at the moment. So chin up.
Great, you've heard it here exclusively today.
Yes.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody. And
thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Heather.
No worries. Thank you.